The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot.
And the president, he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly.
Oh, yeah, and now some members of the media, they're running around going, we're dumbfounded. We never saw any sign of this. I mean, ridiculous. And they're asking, is the president, can he stand for re-election?
Tremendous news. Joe Biden's not going anywhere. He's staying in the race. Just sent this letter out to fellow Democrats. And this came out right on a Monday morning. He says, look, fresh new week. We are putting to bed any questions about my future as the president currently or my chances for the next term. And this comes after a Sunday show series where every single Sunday show was basically Democrat after Democrat saying, well, there's a lot of options still on the table and we're trying to figure out what to do about it. A lot of them were in open insubordination, mutiny, insurrection of the president. And so Joe Biden came out and said, enough of this stuff already, okay? You Democrat whiners. He says, now that you've returned from the July 4th recess, this is Joe to the Democrats, I want you to know that despite all speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race. Perfect. To running this race to the end and to beating Donald Trump. We'll see about that. Now, I have had extensive conversations with the leadership of the party, says Joe, or the person who wrote this letter for him, elected officials, rank and file members, and most importantly, Democratic voters over these past 10 days or so. I have heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in this election. I'm not blind to them, says Joe. Believe me, I know better than anyone the responsibility and the burden the nominee of our party carries. I carried it in 2020 when the fate of our nation was at stake. I also know these concerns coming from a place of real respect for my lifetime of public service and my record as president. And I have been moved by the expressions of affection for me from so many who have known me well and supported me over the course of my public life. I've been so grateful for the rock-solid, steadfast support from so many elected Democrats, question mark, who are they? I haven't seen much of that, except Fetterman, who is on team don't need to speak to get elected, in Congress and all across the country, and taking great strength from the resolve and the determination I've seen from so many voters and grassroots supporters, even in the hardest of weeks. Joe Biden tells the Democrats, or his letter writer, says, I can respond to all of this, says Joe, by clearly saying and unequivocally saying I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe that I was the best person to beat Trump in 2024. Which he might be right, honestly. I mean, they rigged it last time for him. So they'll have the same infrastructure to likely rig it again, which they're doing in places like Wisconsin, where the Supreme Court has said, yeah, sure, ballot boxes can come on back, and we're going to see all sorts of attempts like they did in Michigan to waive signature requirements, and we'll see what they squeeze through here. But Joe Biden is somebody who's already apparently won, according to them, not the CIA. So we had a Democratic nomination process, and this is Joe's greatest point. He says, listen, and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively, all right? I received over 14 million votes. They want to disenfranchise 14 million Americans? 87% of the votes cast across the entire nominating process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin. So the facts are on my side. Eat it, Democrats. 14 million votes. You're going to try to insurrect 14 million Americans because your guy's just a little bit old? This was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Exactly. Only 3 people chose to challenge me. And then, of course, they rigged it. I mean, they didn't really give Phillips any opportunity or anything. But one fared so badly that he left the primaries to run as an independent. That's RFK Jr. after you guys rigged it against him. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. Well, that's Phillips, and he's been basically vindicated. But Joe is right. I mean, he's absolutely right about this, okay? Phillips was there. Phillips was screaming from the rooftop, Joe Biden's old. Joe Biden's demented. Joe Biden can't talk. We're all going to be doomed if you go this way. I mean, he was maybe even more vindicated than Robert Hur, to be perfectly honest with you. Robert Hur wrote a report and got to interview Joe, but Phillips didn't even get to interview him. He saw what we saw years ago. We're like, oh, this dude is gone, long gone. And Phillips was right, totally vindicated. But the Democrats, they're like, yeah, but we like dementia. We are actually okay if our candidates can't speak. John Fetterman shout out. So Joe Biden, the Democrats picked him. Like, end of story. Joe Biden represents the Democrats, all of them. If you're a Democrat, Joe Biden represents you because he's your nominee. And the voters of the Democratic Party have voted. Do not insurrect them. They have chosen me to be the nominee of the party. You're here, Joe. Now, do we just say this process didn't matter? That the voters don't have a say? I decline to do that. Good for you, Joe. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and the trust the voters of the Democratic Party have placed in me to run this year. It was their decision decision to make. Not the press, not the pundits, not the big donors, not any selected group of individuals, no matter how well-intentioned. The voters. And the voters alone decide the nominee of the Democratic Party, not Disneyland heiresses. How can we stand for democracy in our nation if we ignore it in our own party? I cannot do that. I will not do that. The person who wrote this on behalf of Joe says, I have no doubt that I and we can and will beat Trump. We have a historic record of success to run on, from creating over 15 million jobs, which is hilarious, including just 200,000 last month, which gets revised every month. They revise it down. 15 million jobs, those are the bounce back jobs, and they're also not counting full-time jobs. How many full-time jobs have been lost, and how many part-time jobs have been created? And how many of those part-time jobs are going to American citizens versus illegals who have come into this country without following the law? Reaching historic lows on unemployment, because the numbers are rigged, revitalizing American manufacturing with 800,000 jobs, again, where are those going? And protecting and expanding affordable healthcare. Do you feel like your healthcare has gotten more affordable or less? Rebuilding America's roads, bridges, and highways, and ports and airports. Do you think that your roads are better? Or is the money going to Ukraine? Water systems, beating big pharma? Or do you see more pharmaceutical commercials or less today? And lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Again, same question. $35 a month insulin for seniors, which was Trump's plan, to provide student debt relief at the expense of the American justice system, ignoring the Supreme Court for nearly 5 million Americans, and combating climate change, which is also a scam. So that's their record, all a bunch of fake numbers here. But the Democrats, I mean, this sounds good to Democrats. Like, if we're putting our Democratic hat on, we're taking off our clear thinking hat, putting on a Democratic hat. We ask her, well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. We like affordable healthcare. Your healthcare is not more affordable, but they say they gave it to you. Oh, well, that's good enough for me. So more importantly, we have an economic vision to run on that soundly beats Trump. Like what? Printing more money and spending more money in Ukraine and Israel? They are siding with the wealthy and the big corporations, and we are siding with the working people of America. Do you feel like that? It wasn't an isolated moment for Trump to stand at Mar-a-Lago and tell the oil industry they should give him $1 billion. He'll do whatever they want. What? Now that's whose side Trump and the MAGA Republicans are on. So hey, remember, Democrat losers, we hate Trump. Trump did all this stuff. And it's also for us, public consumption, right? Oh, Trump's a problem. Never let that happen. Trickle down, blah, blah, blah. So we are the ones lowering costs for families, whatever. We are protecting the freedom of Americans. They overturned Roe versus Wade, which was an unconstitutional decision in the first place. And we're standing up for American democracy. After January 6th, Trump has proven he's unfit to hold office. We can never allow him anywhere near that office again, my fellow Democrats. We have the record, the vision, and the fundamental commitment to America's freedoms. Now, the question of how we move forward has been well aired for over a week now, and it's time for it to end. We have one job, and that is to beat Donald Trump. We have 42 days to the Democratic Convention and 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump, and it hurts us. It's time to come together to move forward as a unified party and to defeat Donald Trump. Sincerely, Joe Biden, President of the United States, allegedly, if he is not taking a nap. So Joe Biden, I agree with a lot of this statement. I think Joe Biden should not be disenfranchised. The Democrats have already picked him as their nominee. They voted for him, and he represents them in all characteristics, in how he thinks and operates, and how he comports his personal life. He's a perfect edification of that party. Now, we've got several clips. So after Joe Biden released that letter, he called into MSNBC, the Mika, Brzezinski, and Joe show, and he said, hey, I'm angry, and I want you to know about this, and we are now telling you to get in line. Stop it with this nonsense on the air.
We have a special guest joining us now, the 46th President of the United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden.
Presumptive.
Calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumption. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
There you go.
Okay, well, Mr. President, that leads.
You are? You're going to be the nominee? They're like, for real? Are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm sure. Okay, here's why. I beat him before. I'm going to beat him again.
And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debate. Look at his performance at debate. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. I mean, look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. I don't want to get into it, but he's just a liar. And he hadn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days or down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friends. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on in the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave, Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that, and I'm confident that's where the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. With the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way, 97% of all the people who contribute to us people make it under 200, contribute under $200. I think we have the largest contingent ever in history. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And so I want want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think and what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. And you see the major economists out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around and keep America first. And by the way, here's Trump talking about all that he's done. And, you know, Trump is a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January 6th. And he says, they claim, he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing?
Okay, so that's Joe Biden who called in. They gave him about 2 minutes there to rant on a thing. And here's another question. Mika asked him, hey, have you had your brain checked out, dude? Because we want to know, like, can you talk or function at all? I mean, she's thinking to herself, my husband was swearing to me that you had vigor. We got into arguments over dinner about this conversation. He's like, honey, baby, listen, he's got vigor. He can do cartwheels and everything. She's like, are you sure? Seems kind of demented to me. Joe's like, listen, I know DC, baby. You've never really been a congressman. I've been a congressman, okay? Mika, take it easy. Turns out Mika was right. He does have dementia. And then they got into a little tiff over it. Joe's been sleeping on the couch for a week. Now Biden calls back in and he has a direct one-on-one with Mika. So now she needs to ask him, hey, have you had your brain checked out, sir? We also read the article last week that you said, no, I'm fine. It's just my brain. So what's going on?
You've been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinsons, or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences.
Look, I was feeling so badly before the debate. They tested me thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong, I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning. That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this. That very night, I'm talking to large crowds. Look at the crowds we've gathered everywhere from Atlanta to North Carolina to Pennsylvania, and look at the enthusiasm. But it was right after. And where the hell's Trump been? What has Trump said or done?
All right, so I think he's just kind of ranting at this point, and I think I had a clip or two left. He was really kind of ranting and screaming. Yeah, here was the one where he starts screaming, come challenge me at the convention. If you think that I'm not capable or competent, come challenge me. I'll see you there.
The American public is not going to move away from me as the average voter. And again, I'm here for 2 reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot, just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party. They know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, announce the president, challenge me at the convention.
Okay, maybe they will. Maybe that's the plan, is they will actually challenge him at the convention. Time will tell. Now, we also saw this come out over the weekend. There are leaks just happening like a sieve out of the White House. This is how they prep him up to go into his speaking events. So they actually have photographs. It's like a picture book for the president. Remember, Jill's always very happy when he completes things like, you answered all the questions, Joe. What? Answered all the questions? Like he ate all his carrots on his plate or something? So they write also a picture book for him, and you know, they have bedtime stories, and this is speech time stories for Joe. So this is a walk to the podium picture. Gonna walk down here. Here's another walk to the podium. And I don't know if this is normal or not for these types of events. I mean, I think it might actually be helpful to have something like this that says, go over here, come over here. It's like when you go to somebody's house for a party, you appreciate some helpful directions. Now, do you need something like that exactly? I don't know. And is this something that goes to the president? I don't know why that would be. I think that the president can probably, since they're the president, have somebody that would just walk them through or just guide them. This way, sir. This way, Mr. President. It's right down this hall. Take a left, go over here. So like, is Joe studying this or what is it? I don't know. It could be a big deal. It could not be a big deal. It could be ridiculous. It could not be ridiculous. But the thing that's interesting about it is not actually what's in it. It's the leak of it. This is now a story that people are spreading around saying Joe Biden needs a picture picture book to walk down the lane. And this must be coming from the White House. Like, this is from people inside the White House who are leaking their internal documents, which is not a good thing if you want to control your White House. So why are these now leaking out to the media? Why is the media publishing them? Whether it's ridiculous or not, again, I don't know. Does Trump's team have this? Does Biden's team have this? Are these for the president or are these for the staff? Then does somebody show them where to go? I mean, you're speaking all over the place. I would imagine that you walk into some pretty confusing areas. But the point, again, is that they're leaking this. The point of the story is to make Biden look totally incompetent. So he's trying to make Trump look incompetent. But here, that's what they're doing. Joe Biden needs a picture book to move his way through. And it's not just that, right? So this was another story where this was a radio host, and apparently the White House sent her a bunch of questions. She asked a bunch of questions, and now she's been fired for pulling questions from the White House. And again, sending questions before you do an interview, before somebody interviews you or something like that, I think is pretty normal. We don't do a lot of interviews here, but people will send me interview requests, and here's a series of questions that you could ask this person that you might be interested in. And we never usually have time for those. But the point is, people have stuff to prompt conversations and stuff you can ask and stuff like that, talking points. Now, again, I don't think that's appropriate for the president in the middle of an election where the conversation, the point of the conversation is to be questioning, engaging a person's fitness and capacity to respond to issues. So it's not like a podcast, right, where somebody's coming and talking about their book and they said, ask me some questions about chapter 2 or chapter 5 or chapter 6 or whatever. And, they script it for you a little bit. I don't think that's this at all, but they did it during an interview with CNN. This came over from Colin Rugg, does great work on Access. Host Andrea Lawful Sanders admitted she was given the questions to ask Biden. Now she's been fired. WRD Radio, they say, remains independent. Agreeing to a predetermined set of questions jeopardizes the matter, not something that we engage in. So here's this little excerpt.
You asked 4 questions, and maybe that's what you were allowed to ask by the campaign or the White House, but they were essentially the same questions, both interviews, about accomplishments, progress in your respective state, what's at stake in the election, what he has to say about his debate performance, and what he would say to voters who think their vote doesn't matter or might sit this election out. Were those questions given to you by the White House or the campaign, or did you have to submit questions ahead of this interview?
The questions were sent to me for approval. I approved them.
Okay, so the White House sent the questions to you ahead of the interview?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
I got several questions, 8 of them, and the 4 that were chosen were the ones that I approved.
And the reason I ask is not a criticism of either view. It's just that if the White House is trying now to prove the vim, vigor, acuity of the president, I don't know how they do that by sending questions first before the interview so that the president knows what's coming.
Yep, exactly. So she approved the questions? You like how that is? No. They approved the questions. You just accepted the questions that they told you to ask. And so Joe Biden was out earlier this week, was at that black church we saw over on Sunday. Interesting clips here. Kind of looks like he doesn't know where he is or what he's doing.
Let us stand together.
And there's Joe. Man, he looks like just a lost kid at a mall. Should I go now? Should I get up? Where should I go? All right, so hopefully he's doing okay, but everyone's going to keep watching everything that he does moving forward. There he is. Stand up now. Yeah, somebody told him, get up. Perfect. It's hard to remember, especially if you haven't been to a church before or haven't been to, it's a new church. People standing up, sitting down. I'm Catholic, so it's like that all mass. It's like up and down, up and down, up and down, kneeling, up and down, up and down. That is what's happening there. Now you got to listen to some of these clips. This is Raskin and Psaki, who are really excited about Joe's age because it shows us about the beauty of aging.
I mean, this all comes in a week where there was some New York Post report, inaccurate, false reporting that suggested that President Biden was kind of stalling, where he was paused, he was looking the other way. I feel like there's a double standard. I mean, do you feel like there's a double standard out there and how people are looking at their ages?
They can't mess with him on substance, so they go after what they see as his Achilles heel, which is his age. And of course, a lot of people see his age as, something that helps explain some of his wisdom and some of his compassion, the kind of compassion you see not just within his family, but outside of it. That compassion for people in his family, which is real and authentic, becomes solidarity for everybody in the country who's struggling, as well as for people around the world.
Wow, just a beautiful thing. And he loves his family so much that Hunter Biden's in charge of the White House now, basically running everything. So we've got other reaction. So Raskin's in love with him. Axelrod, not so much. He says, listen, Joe Biden's going to get crushed here. Says Biden is going to stick around in this race. He's going to get obliterated. This is Axelrod, Obama's big guy.
It's just there are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president, he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly this race.
Yeah, so what are they going to do? Are they going to show him the door, show him the exit? We know that everybody sticks around until the final minute, because if Joe Biden says he has to drop out now, then we have a crisis, right? If he says, okay, I'm not going to run again, then we say, well, why are you the president? Then he has to resign immediately, then Kamala has to step in, then there's a race for her number 2, then Kamala now gets threatened maybe by another primary, maybe the convention's all out of whack, so he has to stay in until the very last minute. But right now, they're talking about a Blitz primary that could open up the Democratic race, so they have this idea that they're just going to cram a bunch of Democrats into a room and have them smash their heads together, I guess, until we get a candidate. It would be wild. Here's the idea. Biden would step down as the nominee mid-July, coming up soon, announce the new system with the backing from Kamala Harris, but he'd still be the president. That's why that doesn't make sense. If he steps down as the nominee, he's got to step down as the president. Potential candidates would have a few days to throw their respective hats into the ring. Then there would be a sprint. 6 candidates who got the most votes would move forward. There'd be a Blitz primary, each forum moderated by Obama, Oprah, Taylor Swift. This sounds like Democrat reality show. The nominee would ultimately be chosen by the delegates before the start of the convention. It would be announced with plenty of fanfare. Then they'd bring out all their big guns, Biden, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton, and they'd launch the party into something new. This is like Fantasyland from whoever wrote this. This is hysterical. So this is from Morgan Chalfant, Blitz primary. So we know that it is not looking good. Here is what Kennedy said in response to some of this nonsense in reaction to Biden's debate performance. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana.
Off when it wasn't the speaker's turn. And I don't really understand what President Biden was referring to. I do think that the White House is doing our president disservice tonight. The White House says that, well, they're like Kevin Bacon at the end of Animal House. All is well. Don't panic. We've been transparent the entire time. This White House, they would know transparency if it jumped up and yodeled and bit them in the butt. There has been a cover-up, and many members of the media have participated in it.
Yeah,
and now some members of the media, they're running around going, we're dumbfounded. We never saw any sign of this. I mean, ridiculous. And they're asking, is the president, can he stand for re-election? His own Justice Department a few months ago said that he's not even competent to stand trial. What parachute did these...
And they rejected that aggressively. Kamala Harris, all the Democrats, they were screaming for Robert Hur's head. And so they clearly knew something that we did not know, and they made their decision, so they have to stick with it.
What planet did these people parachute in from? The American people may be poorer under President Biden, but they're not stupid. And their concerns and suspicions have been confirmed.
All right, so that's John Kennedy explaining there's been a cover-up. Now they're trying to change horses in mid-race. Now they're trying to have a Democratic Blitz primary. No. Joe Biden is staying in this race. He has secured the votes of the Democrats. He perfectly represents them in his thinking, demeanor, his family affairs, his morality, all the things. He's a great representation of them. He shouldn't go anywhere. We're glad that he's staying in the race.